Okay, so we'll start with the game between we'll start with the draws first because the victories are going to be more exciting. Let's start with the game between Ari and Tari and Jan Christoph Duda. Okay, so e4 c5, knight f3 d6. Okay, so the interesting thing here is that Tari decides not to play an open Sicilian. As you guys know, the Najdorf variation of Sicilian has been doing very poorly in this tournament. Black has already lost at least like 4 or 5 games. With it, I think Maxime alone has lost 3, so it's very surprising that Tari goes bishop b5 and doesn't play d4. So knight d7, we have the Rosalimo, of course, named after the taxi cab driver and grandmaster as well. So knight c3, a6. This kind of actually turns in. Wait, this actually turns into a what is bishop d3? So this actually turns into some kind of Najdorf anyway. But it turns in, so like let's go back. Let's think about this logically. Let's assume white plays d4 takes knight f6, knight c3, a6. If white plays bishop d3, which I've played, by the way, this is a line of the Najdorf. Normally black plays for e5 or knight c6. So Tari basically decides to play very creative, like change Najdorf variation. But again, in this position, the knight should be on b8, not c5. So Tari basically is trying to make some argument with this opening that that it's like a Najdorf, but the knight is better on b8 than it is on c5.
Takes, just subscribe.
I mean, seems very strange to me. I'm not gonna lie. This seems like a very strange thought process. That basically to play the same position but with the knight on c5 instead of b8. Somehow this is better for white. I mean, I think Tari, if you want to play a Najdorf, he should frankly just be a man and play an open Najdorf from the get-go rather than trying to play something very dank, you know, some dank variation where he argues the knight on c5 is worse than the knight on b8. So that's a very strange thought process. I cannot understand it whatsoever. So castles g6, knight to b3, trade, bishop g7, a4, bishop g4, f3, queen b6, bishop e6. And already, I mean, after rook a3 castles, I'm hard pressed to say that white should be much better. Although having said that, white probably does have some kind of pull because he does have the connect 3 and he does have 2 pawns in the center. I'm actually a little bit skeptical about the way the way Duda played this. I kind of wonder here if you can't just castle. I mean, if bishop e3, you go knight g4, obviously. If white plays like h3, just b6, bishop e3, bishop b7, and rook c8. Looks pleasant enough. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. So a little bit weird here. I mean, maybe b6 or some a5. I don't know. This looks completely fine for black. It seems a little bit dubious to play it like this because after bishop e3, I actually think white is a very pleasant position with the connect 3, the pawns in the center. Looks very nice. So rook b8, a very mysterious move. What is rook b8? Very mysterious move by Duda here. I guess he's hoping for a5, queen a7, and then some b6, b5. This is a very mysterious move. This feels like a computer move, but it doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand rook b8 at all. It's a very mysterious move. So rook e1 takes, queen a5. I mean, I guess maybe Duda's point was that what he wanted to do was he wanted to take on b3, but he couldn't do it right away because if he takes right away here and goes queen a5, you hang the pawn. So it's a very deep, mysterious kind of idea. I mean, I don't know. It seems strange to me. But anyway, this is what happens. Queen d3, rook c8, bishop d2, queen c7, before e6 again. Already a very flat position. The rook is he's done a classic rook lift, but again, the rook looks like it's on the wrong side of the board here. The rook just doesn't look right on this b4 square. So d5, e5. White cannot do the fossilization with knight d5 because black would take and then go pawn takes knight, and black has a rook, a bishop, and a knight for the queen. It's too much material here. So e5, knight d7, knight e2, queen d8, and already again this rook on b4 is not ideal. Maybe it puts pressure on the pawn on b7 long term, but it doesn't look quite right. So queen d8, they trade the rooks. Rook b3 again. Basically Tari realizes that his rook does not have any scope here, so he tries to take the open file with rook b3. Now queen c4, very nice move by Duda. a5, b5, knight c1, trade, rook c8, knight b8, trade, and they agree to a draw here. Basically white goes knight d3, knight c6, pawn to b4, and again the bishop holds both pawns, knight holds, and black can't really do anything over here on the king side. So very logical result in the game ending in a draw. Yeah, I mean Very dry game, limited stuff to say. The only thing I'm going to say is Tari's this whole notion that Tari had of playing a knight over the knight on c5 instead of b8 is just very strange to me. I really feel like if you want to play an open knight orf, you just play the knight orf. You don't to me, I can't understand the logic behind playing a knight orf with the knight on c5, because he could have very easily had the same thing, just d4 takes knight f6, knight c3, a6, bishop d3. And now knight bd7 is a line here as well, by the way, to add. Knight bd7, knight c5 is a variation against this bishop d3 move. So why do you want to play the position but with a knight already on c5, already like in this position? Like, it makes no sense when you can have this position. Why do you want this position with the knight on c5? I mean, like, it makes no sense to have this versus this. Why do you want the knight on c5? So the whole notion of playing like this is very, very weird. I'm implying what? I don't, it doesn't make sense to me. I feel like if you're thinking about the logic thought process of playing a knight orf, why do you want to give your opponent extra tempi? So for Tari, I don't understand. I just don't get it. To me, it's like if you're gonna try to play the knight orf, just play the knight orf. Just play it. Like, I mean, why not just play the classic knight orf and then put your bishop on d3? Why do you want to give your opponent extra tempi? He did not get confused here. No, he definitely didn't get confused. Doodah was black. Yes, Doodah was black. Just call Tari and ask. Yeah, maybe. Anyway, very strange game. Let's keep going. Let's look at the game between Jordan Van Forest and Alexander Donchenko. All right, so e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, pretty standard. We have the Ruy Lopez, or the Spanish, played again. Bishop a4, knight f6 castles, bishop e7, d3. Okay, so we have a closed Spanish. White plays d3 here. Normally white can play rook e1. This is a more standard variation, and it branches off in a million different variations. Instead, plays d3, b5, bishop b3, d6. Black would really like to go knight a5 and capture this bishop on the diagonal, but if you do it right away, you lose the juicer on e5. So d6, a4, bishop d7. Again, if pawn takes, you have to move the bishop so that the queen holds the rook on a8. Sorry, wrong button. Apologies. Sorry. So h3 played here, castles, knight to c3, knight to a5 here, bishop a2. White keeps the bishop on the board, by the way, keeps it on the long diagonal here. Black plays b4, knight to e2, c5. Pretty standard stuff. Black tries to fight for the center, prevent white from being able to push. Knight g3, rook b8, all pretty normal. Knight d2. So white basically moves the knight here, wants to put the knight on c4 because all these pawns are on dark squares, so there's going to be some kind of outpost for either the knight or for the bishop on c4. For example, if you move the rook, say you get this position, the bishop is outposted very nicely, and it creates a lot of threats down towards the pawns on a6 and f7. And so it's a logical move. Also, secondarily, white might go f4 and open up this file for this very powerful rook and try to use the bishop and the rook from f1 and a2 to hit the pawn on f7. So queen c8 is played here, knight to c4, they trade, bishop to e6, trying to trade off this very powerful light square bishop that white has. a5 is played, and actually this looks like a very, very pleasant position for white here. If black takes, first of all, you have backwards pawn that cannot progress forward. Secondly, your knight is jumping to f5 to hit the pawn of the bishop. Third, you're going f4, potentially bishop takes, and you put massive pressure on the pawn on d6 from f4. So, and fourth, your rook is on f1 is going to be very active. So this looks extremely pleasant for white. So I'm wondering what Jordan did wrong here, because Jordan is a player who really likes the initiative, and it feels like white has a big initiative here. So g6, bishop to g5. Okay, g6 looks like a questionable move. I'm wondering why not just bishop h6 and f4. Maybe it's bad. Okay, Engine seems to think it's bad, so what do I know? But it feels like there should be some way. So bishop g5, bishop c4 takes, queen e6, queen to d3, again backwards pawn. However, here with the pawn on g6, your knight is kind of misplaced. It can't jump to either of these squares, so the pawn kind of holds the knight in place here. Rook d8, b3, knight h5. Aha, and this is probably what Jordan missed, was this knight h5 move. He was trying to consolidate with b3. I do wonder if you can't just go bishop e3 and f4 later. It's probably nothing special, but it feels like white should have a small pull in this position. Not much, but a small advantage. Anyway, he goes here, knight h5, bishop to e3, knight g3, fg3, h5, queen e2. Small advantage for white. The problem at the same time is this pawn is very solid, so this whole pawn chain is solid. The pawns, really, there aren't going to be pawn exchanges, and also you have double pawns. Even though you get an open file, very easy for black to just play f6 and defend it with the bishop. So here, king g7, rook h8, rook f1, rook f8, queen d3, f6, and now again, no open files. It's a very clogged position here. It's like, you know, it's like the toilet bowl. This is just very clogged. No open lines, no real play. Just not much here for either side, really. So hard to really, I mean, the two weaknesses black has on f6 and d6 are one second. The two pawns on f6 and d6 are very solid because the bishop holds it, and yeah, it's just nothing going on. So bishop d2, rook f7, one second. So bishop d2, rook f7, bishop e3, and now basically they just start waiting all over the place. Repetition. You'd like to go g4 if you can, but you can't really push g4 because the queen and the pawn hold it. And if you ever push, even if you get some position, I know I'm making random moves here, but even if you get this position, the rook now is very strong on this open h file, so you're actually helping this black rook become active, and potentially king g8 and doing the bro lift into the doing the lift into the bro stack is pretty good too as well, with king g8 and rook h7. So you're not really playing for g4, so both players just pretty cautious about it. They agree to the draw here after rook h8. Not much happening. Queen to c6 is a good idea, but the problem is you can't actually get there. Like I can just chill all day long and put my queen here. Where's your entry? There's no entry on the diagonal, and when you come back here, I just stop you again. So wherever you try to enter on this square, I hold it, and if you go for this square, I just go back and hold it. So neither side really can do much. If black plays h4, for example, then white goes g4, g5.
Just resubbed for 6 months,
and it's still pretty dry. But yeah, I don't know. It's 150, buy some puts. I'm not doing stuff right now, not while I'm streaming, for sure. Anyway, yeah, so this game ends up being a draw. Just pretty dry game. Not a whole lot happening. Pretty standard game. Let's keep moving. Let's look at the game between Alireza Firouzja and Andrei Esipenko, third game. Okay, so it starts with d4, knight f6, knight f3, d5, bishop f4. Alireza again plays the London system like he did against Jan Krzysztof Duda earlier in the event. e6, e3, c5, knight d2, knight c6, c3, knight h5, bishop g5. Okay, pretty normal. g6 here. This is actually a line that I myself have played as black. It's a pretty solid, pretty standard setup. Black just basically tries to argue that this bishop on h4 is misplaced. At some point, maybe g5, but also you want to maybe use this pawn to push e5 in the center and contest for this whole central part of the board as well. So now h3, c takes d4, c takes d4, bishop to d6, bishop to d3, castles, a3, queen c7 here, queen c2, king to h8.
I really enjoy watching your streams.
Thank you for the $3, appreciate it. So again, not much happening. White doesn't want to castle. Maybe white can play g4, and he does. Knight g7. At the same time, when you push the pawns like this, your bishop again is out to lunge because the bishop covers g3. So the bishop temporarily attacks a pawn on f6, but it's not really well placed. So b4, a6, rook c1, knight to e8, queen to b2, king to g8, g5, f5, knight b3. I actually kind of like this position for white potentially long term if you can get knight c5. At the same time, if black can go queen e7 and e5 or f4, there is a lot of potential for black to exploit the fact that white's over push on the king side, and you don't really want to castle, and your king can't go this way. I actually wonder, is queen e7 actually, queen e7 is apparently winning for black, it looks like, according to the engine. After knight c5, e5, you just sort of break open the diagonal, maybe f4, e4. This king on e1 is misplaced. The bishop on h4 is doing terribly, and it's very dangerous. So knight g7, knight a5 is played here, bishop to d7, castles, rook e8, knight c6, bishop takes c6, a4, knight h5. Try and take advantage of this bishop on h4, which is still kind of out to lunch again. This pawn on g5, there's no scope. and you can't go back to knight dominates the bishop on h4. So here b5 is played, pawn takes, queen to b6, rook c2, bishop to d7 is played, rook to e1, rook c8. Actually, I feel like rook a8 is a better move, to go rook a8, rook a5, and use the open file, because the bishops actually hold all the squares. So even if white potentially gets the double stack, you can always do your own double stack on the a file. And just to show you guys, the bishops hold the squares. Rooks have no entries on these two squares, and you meanwhile have entries on all the squares on the a file. So your stack is better than the white stack. So let's go back. So rook c8, king g2, trade, rook c8, queen d2. One thing I would argue also here, however, though,
Death 101 just subscribed.
what I would argue here is that at the same time, when you trade off material, the ideas of pushing the center become a lot less likely, and with only a rook and a queen, it's harder for black to take advantage of it. So rook c8, queen d2, queen a7, queen b2, rook e2, and they basically end up trading here. Very tough position to say there's anything better for black at this point. I think the big mistake here is trading the rooks. I think black should have gone for his own double stack on the a file. At the same time, I understand not doing it. You're kind of worried maybe there's knight e5, rook c1, rook c7, so I understand why. But anyway, they trade off, and after queen c2, position fizzles. Black has no pawn push. Black can't really push because then white goes to e4, and therefore the logical result, basically a trade-off, and ends up being a draw here. And they agree to a draw. Neither side can do anything. The bishop holds the pawn on b5, and the bishop holds this square. Not much for either side to do here. Computer seems to think after f4 black is still better, interestingly enough, but I understand making a draw. I also think what I would say about this game is I think for Esipenko, he wanted to be solid this game, and he was fine with a draw, because he has the three cellar dwellers left to play. So I understand making the draw in this situation. Okay, so that's the third draw. Let's look at the fourth draw. This is the game between David Anton Guiaro and Pentala Hari Krishna. Now, once again, you guys, I've not looked at any of these games, so this is my first look at them.
Severai just subscribed.
Thank you to Severai. Thank you to It's Lofty for the Prime, H20 Death for the Prime, Playalistic for the gift of tier 1, Practically Goose for the tier 1, Glocker for the 6 months. Thank you to N1 Live for the 6, and Graver for the 2. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right, so E4, C5. We have a Najdorf here, right?
System just subscribed.
We have E5 here. So this is a system that I remember when I was a lot younger. Thank you to Casual Hippo for the Prime, and Dagobah system for the Prime. This is a very old line. I remember I used to play a lot in the Internet Chess Club around like 2001, 2002. There was this very strong grandmaster whose username was Guenplen. He even plays now, I think, on chess.com under the same username. So he was using the same username of Guenplen. His name is Boris Grachev, and he used to always play a system online. He would play bishop b5, bishop d7, knight f5, or no, sorry, not knight f5, takes, knight f5, knight e4, takes, and then I think d5, bishop h6 castles. And we had a lot of battles in this variation. It was very unclear what was going on, but I remember he was the guy who used to play this e5 line. Now, by modern theory, I think this is considered to be very dubious, so it's interesting that Hari played this. So bishop b5, knight d7. Again, by pushing the pawn, you create a backwards weakness. Now, so one basic thing that I would add is, I remember I used to I took a couple of lessons with Walter Brown, the former US champion, a longtime proponent of the Najdorf. And I remember when I analyzed with him, he was like, so what is the point behind playing a6? And it's like, obviously you want to play b5, but the underlying reason, the basic reason, at least that he told me, was that you play a6 because you want to push the pawn to e5, and there's no bishop b5 check. So the point is to basically, you want, if it's your move, let's just say, let me make something right. How do I do this? Let me set up the position. Okay, so if you get this position, you want to play e5 here to attack the knight, but you don't want white to be able to play bishop b5. So that's the underlying reason behind playing a6. So it's interesting that Hari goes e5 right away, allowing bishop b5 check, knight d7, knight to f5 here, a6, bishop to a4, b5, bishop b3, knight c5. And again, you look at the evaluation, this is supposed to be really bad for black. So I kind of wonder if Hari wasn't feeling a little bit of inspiration and he just wanted to play like this. So bishop g5, bishop takes f5, e takes f5, bishop to e7 here, bishop f6, queen d5, castles. Actually, what did he do wrong? Let's think about this. castles. Takes is maybe wrong. Maybe white should castle. Unclear. Anyway, so takes queen d5, castles, knight e4, queen a5, king e2, queen b4, king f3. Okay, this is a little bit extravagant. I mean, this is some extravagant play here by David Anton. He decides he kind of wants to play the half bond cloud into the king march up the center of the board. So a little bit weird by playing king f3. So bishop e7, rook d1. The one thing, however, is the king is very safe here. White has a good grip on the light squares, so I understand why. So rook c8, c3, queen e4, takes king e4. White gets the king to e4. It is an endgame. Thank you to Koder Kumar for the 12 months. Thank you to Huntington for the 2 and BS6 Live for the prime. Thank you so much.
For 12 months.
So yeah, so we get to this position. By the way, you guys, later on after we do the analysis, I am going to announce a full field for PogChamps 3, so I will be doing that after the analysis. So king takes e4, rook f d8 is played here, rook to d3, king to f8, rook a d1, a5 a3. White is kind of better here, but it's very hard to break through because you don't have pawn pushes on either c4 or a4. Your king looks beautiful. You don't really want to play f4, so even though white optically can claim an advantage, it's very hard to it's hard to be much better. Yes, I'm going to announce all the players. You're such a good analyst. Why don't you go pro? I know I've thought about it before. Black just basically sits around and chills. Black chills, black chills, black chills, black just chills, black just chills, black just chills. Okay, so now we get to this position. White trades a set of rooks, but already again the problem here is even if you go rook d1, it's the same thing. Black can just chill forever, and you can try to push and make some space on the king side, but still after f6 you never really get g5, and I think it's just an optical advantage. So white takes, d takes, bishop d5, rook b6. Again, black doesn't want white to be able to push the pawn, so the reason he puts the rook here is because you can take and then open up the line for the rook if white pushes either pawn. So white goes b4, and now they agree to a draw. I assume in view of the fact that this is actually a very peculiar spot to offer a draw now that I think about it, because after takes, black can't takes a rook a7 check, which is winning the pawn at f7, and black can also go a4, but c4 takes and rook a4, and maybe this is a draw after c3 bishop b3, but I feel like optical means it looks like you're better because you have more space, you have better placed pieces, but you can't really do anything with that advantage. So this is very odd. I would never offer a draw here as white, because white is still better and you want to see what black does. No, what the move on the board was b4, which means that in the game b4 was played and white offered the draw because black didn't make a move. Whoever made the last move had to have offered the draw. So David Anton offered a draw, and I'm very perplexed because if black takes with the a pawn, you take and you're much better. So why would you offer a draw when black still has to find a best move here with pawn takes pawn? And then secondly, you can take with the c pawn as well if you want and go rook c1. Very, very strange here. Actually, I mean, I guess David Anton was worried about takes in a4 and he thought he might be worse. I don't know. Very strange to offer a draw here. Very, very strange. Like, I could have seen him offering a draw after bishop d5, but once you play b4 offering a draw, it just seems very weird. Very, very weird, because I would have just played bishop d5 and offered the draw instead of offering the draw after b4. So I don't know, strange decision, but the game ended in a draw. All right, you guys, actually I do need to use the restroom now that you speak of that, so I'm gonna go use the restroom, and then I'll be right back. Sorry, 1 second. All right, you guys, we're back. Sorry about that. Yeah, I just need to use the restroom. Stream stopped? What do you mean the stream stopped? What happened? No, what, you guys are trolling me. Nothing stopped. Oh my gosh, you guys scared me for a second. I was like, oh my gosh, the stream stopped. Okay, let's keep going. So let's take a look now at the games which were decisive today in Tata Steel. We'll start with the game between Anish Giri and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave.
Subbed for 6 months.
Thank you to C10 Allen for the 6 months. Okay, so E4, C5, Knight F3, D6, D4. See, Anish, unlike Ari and Tari, like a man, he just goes right into the Najdorf. Not playing for some dank like piece placement or like knights on B8 versus C5. He just goes for it like a proper person. Okay, H3, E5, Knight to F3. Okay, normally White plays Knight to B3 or Knight E2. Knight F3 is a little bit more random, but he goes Knight F3, Bishop to E7. G4. Whoa, bold decision by Anish. Very creative. Obviously you don't play a move like this out of nowhere, so this was clearly home prep. I love the idea though by Anish. Very bold. And this is one thing that I will say, because I know the Fabiano game features something unusual as well. Modern day chess, what we're learning with computers is that you can do a lot of things that people would never do in the old days. Like for example, this G4 move, I mean, Gary, of course, nowadays, since he has sort of adapted a lot, and Vishy have, if you were to say, let's just say I'm some random person, I can go back in the time machine, and I can go back 20 years and talk to Gary Kasparov and say, I'm a GM, I'm a top chess player as well, and I can go back and say I'm from the future, and in the future, in this position, I would play pawn to G4. The Gary of 20 years ago, or anyone who's from that old school who learned chess in the old days, they'd be like, they'd look at you and they'd be like, what's wrong? They'd be like, what? Like what is G4? They'd be like, what is that? That's just not a move. Now that I do that though, you guys, in Fabiano's game, I'll give you guys an even better expression, because there's something that definitely would not be played. But anyway, it looks very weird because like you just feel like the knight's on F3. Normally if you want to play G4, I'll give you an example, you do something like this, and when you can get some like full king side expansion with the pawns like this, it makes a lot more sense because you can run the pawns up the board. But the thing is, it looks a little bit weird because the knight's on F3, whereas normally the knight would be on B3 or E2, so you can thrust with F4. So black castles, G5, knight H5, bishop to C4, bishop E6, bishop B3, G6. Looks pretty standard so far for black. I feel like Maxime's doing fine. Knight is supported. White doesn't really have a kingside play. However, White does have a grip on this D5 square with the bishop and the knight. So White wants to go like here, bishop E3, queen E2 castles, and take the D file. So bishop E3, knight D7, queen D2, rook C8, castles. Okay, so now both players have castled, finished their development. Darn it, I meant to hit the forward button. Why did I just hit the end button again? Sorry you guys, why did I just hit the down button, not the forward button? Sorry about that. So castles, knight to C5, bishop takes C5, rook takes C5, and now H4 played here. Sorry, yeah, I just hit the down button, not the forward arrow and the down button are next to each other. Sorry about that. So H4, knight to F4, king to B1, queen A5. Now what I would say about this position is I wonder if knight C5 isn't right. I kind of wonder if you don't go B5 and knight B6. This also looks thematic. Knight C, the only reason I don't like knight C5 is because I feel like you give White a full grip. White gets the full grip on the light squares. The computer doesn't like it either. I know somehow B5 and knight B6, it just B5 B4, it feels more in the spirit to expand on the queen side somehow. And I don't even know if that means like I guess now knight C5 is good. Why is knight C5 good now though? What's the difference? What is the difference here? I literally don't understand. Oh, the difference is you're supposed to take with the pawn. Oh really? Interesting. Huh. You're supposed to take with the pawn. Wow. So actually that's why then is basically when you go here, I guess you can't really take with the pawn. So what you should do is, I guess the idea is to go here, then take with the pawn so you can trap the juicer on the diagonal. So that is pretty tricky to understand. Actually I myself probably never think of that. I would thought B5 here and knight B6. But I guess here, yeah, maybe knight B6 is best. No, knight C5 is better. But very tricky, very tricky. So knight C5 takes H4, knight F4, king B1, queen A5, knight E1. And yeah, and the problem here is White's actually better because from a positional standpoint, your bishop is sort of, it's not a good bishop on E7. It's very passive, and what White wants to do is trade your one active knight, And not only does white want to trade, but let me just make a couple of random moves. You'll notice that in this position, for example, or this is the game actually, now white also has a free hand to just start pushing up the H file and double stacking and checkmating your king. Whereas when you go back here, for example, look at how the knight and the pawn, they hold the structure, so white can never really attack on the king side. So fundamentally, once you get here, I get rid of your good knight, so now I have a free hand to attack on the king side. Secondly, I now get a full grip on d5, and third, I can at some point play rook f1 and f4. So positionally, this is really bad for black here. So he sacks because I think here Maxime's like, oh man, I'm in really bad shape here. I got to go all in before I positionally get crushed in the center of the board or on the king side here. So he takes rook d5, pawn takes, bishop f5. Actually, is this right? Wow, queen d2 apparently is the right move here. Why is queen d? I don't understand. Okay, so if queen d2, what is the point? If bishop a3, f3. Wow. I guess you can just go f3 and h5 and eventually attack, and you just say see no fear here, or see no evil, fear no evil, and you just go all in. You just ignore all these pieces near the king near the queen side, and you try to argue your king is very safe with this bishop. Yeah, this is pretty dank. This is really dank. I mean, this is why computers are so frustrating, because like literally as a human, if you see this over the board, you're like you're really worried about your king safety, and the computer's like, who cares, I just play on the other side of the board. You have nothing. I have one bishop, it protects my king. So yeah, this is pretty insane the way the computers see this, but for a human, it's very hard to play like this. So pawn takes here, queen d2, bishop d6. Okay, and now it's actually very tricky, because one thing you'll notice here is that the bishop gets on a better diagonal. So if we go back to this position, the bishop is on a3, for example, and maybe you can try to create a lolly checkmate on b2, but it's very hard to get anything more here. So when you look at the game after takes and bishop d6, it's much different, because black has a very sinister idea of going let me just make some random moves. Has a very sinister idea of putting the bishop where you can still create checkmate threats on b2, but it's also on the long diagonal, so you can potentially put the bishop back and line up a battery as well towards the king on a1. So that's why you have to be very careful here. And now you go c4, queen to b6, king a1, a5. I love this move, trying to play a4, remove the bishop so that your rook comes down and you get a big attack here. c3 is played, a4, bishop c2. I guess he thought that after takes bishop b3, there's like rook f4. Very complicated position at any rate. So Anish goes immediately for the exchange of the bishops. Again, right now white has an extra rook, but white's rooks are very passive. Black's rook is very active, and the bishops are also significantly more active than these two rooks that white has. So e4, again, trying to go for bishop e5 here. Bishop takes a4. I'm actually kind of shocked that Anish won this game, because this really looks like a Maxime kind of game where it's very tactical, a lot of initiative for black here. So I'm kind of surprised that Maxime lost this game. Now apparently rook c5 why is rook c5 so bad? Rook c8 apparently is better. What's the difference? Let's see. Rook e1, bishop e5, rook e3. Well, what happens in the game first? Let's see. Okay,
Lord
so here queen d6 has to be played. So what is the difference? Is there a difference? Let me get some depth here. Thank you, Lord Zach, for the prime. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. What is the difference here? Is there a difference, or is the computer just insane? I mean, what is the difference? I don't understand. The rook is on c5 versus c8. I don't see a difference in the valuation. There's some difference with the rook on c8 than c5, but I don't understand. I literally don't understand. Been working out? Not really, but I try to stay in shape. I go out walking and stuff. Anyway, I don't understand. This by the way, you guys, I'm gonna just go a little bit esoteric here for a second, or wax esoteric. I don't even know if that's a saying, but anyway, I'm gonna wax esoteric for a second. And this is one of these things where when you play chess and you use computers, you get really confused, because it's like, what is the difference between the rook being on c5 or c8? Like in the greater scheme of things, there's 64 squares on the frickin' board. There are only 64 squares. Like, in what world does this rook on c8, like when you think like 14 million moves in the future, in what world is this rook somehow better here? Like, is it something like rook a8 and you take the a file, you take the h file, do you go f6 rook f8? Like, what is it that makes this like so much better? And it's like, is it that it blocks diagonal? But I mean, again, the evaluation is the same here. Like, what is the difference? Like, or is it that with the rook on c5 there's always going to be some push? Is that the difference? Like, what is the difference? So it's very oftentimes when you get into situations like this and you look at games after you've played and you're very perplexed because you're like, what's going on? Like, why is the rook better here? It's like, it literally, like, it just makes no sense. And then you start to think, well, does the computer somehow in the future, it sees, you know, it sees some long variation where the rook is going somewhere else from this square versus this square, for example? Like, is this square more important than this square? Like, it becomes really dank, and you start to question yourself and wonder, what exactly are you doing in chess? Like, what are you even like what's going on? Are you even playing the same game? So it's one of those things. The usual saying that I'm familiar with is, you wax poetic. But yeah, it's like, it's one of those things where it's just like, you start to question yourself and you wonder, like, what are you even playing anymore? Like, what's going on? Like, why is this rook better on c8 than c5? And it's just one of those things where you sometimes you start to think, like, what's going on? Like, what am I even playing anymore? So yeah, so anyway, so rook c5, rook e1, bishop e5, rook e3, queen d6. Now the thing is, white should be a little bit better here because white's king is very safe and this bishop actually is not active. It has the pawn in the way, so white can kind of defend this weak point, and down the road maybe you can create a cactus storm with h6 and queen g7. So king b2, b5. I like this idea to play b4 and win the juice or use this pin. a3, so that if b4 you just take. Rook c8, rook a1, b4. Exactly how did Maxime lose this game? Because this looks like a great position to play for black. So b4 takes, d6 is played here, rook to b8. I mean, why not bishop f4? Because bishop f4, you kind of, if you count the pawns here, if you count the pawns, you have 1 2 3 4 5. White has 1 2 3 4 5 6, and if you get to a position like this, white is very stable here. White's up a pawn, you can go h5 h6, and your bishop is just crummy on f5. It's behind a pawn on e4 and it does nothing special, so it's just very, very crummy. So yeah, that's what I would say in general terms, in terms of like what's going on here. All right, you guys, so let's keep going with the game. Rook c8 is played here, rook a1, b4. Logical move. Apparently it's a bad move. I guess black is supposed to say, okay dude, I can play h5 here. I can just play h5, and if you take, I go here and basically ignore the fact that you're down material and just play it like it's an endgame and go, who cares? Again, this is why computers, you kind of be like, these moves like h5 are so unnatural, so inhuman, or unhuman, I should say, not inhumane, unhuman, but like h5 or h6, and it's like, you basically, this is something that computers understand because computers don't have emotions. Like, as a human, you're playing on the field of position. So in this position as black, you're like, I've got initiative, I've got good bishops, my queen is good, my rook is good, how do I improve my position? And the computer is like, I don't care, I just chill, I can go eat some potato chips and just push a pawn on the king side and ignore everything and just wait. And that's like the difference, is that humans, it's like you naturally want to build on your position, you want to improve it, you're thinking, how do I improve my position? And the computer's like, my position's perfect, I don't need to do anything, I just chill. So that's why computers will always be better than humans, because we have this psychological need to improve the position. You want to move forward, make the position better, and the computer's just like, who cares, I can just play a random move and I'm actually improving my position, even though I'm down a bishop for a rook. Yeah, eat some potato chips, that's true. Yeah, computers can't eat. But anyway, yeah, so b4 is played. Logical move for a human because you want to keep moving forward, you want to keep attacking. So takes, queen takes b4, d6 is played, which apparently is a big blunder or not. Let's see what the computer says. Let's let it get some depth. Rook to b8. Okay, rook to a3. Again, great position for black. Great bishops, great rook, great queen. How did Maxime blunder this? Goes queen b7, strange move. So I guess the first question is, what is white's next move? Just d7 d8 for the counterplay. The rook can't really go anywhere, the pawn dominates and the bishop holds everything here. So this rook is not good, this queen's going nowhere, this rook and bishop are going nowhere. So I guess the main thing you have to deal with is black is just d7 d8. This is the only counterplay for white here. Okay, so queen b7 is apparently a very bad move, because after king c1, because after king c1, I guess now the queen gets very active here, and the rook gets active as well. I think this is the big problem here, is that if you go, what's a logical human move here? I guess like bishop f4, for example. White goes queen d5, tries to trade into the endgame, and now you also have rook a8. This is the problem, is that when the rooks come off with the queen and two bishops, it's much harder to attack here. So the big problem is basically that white gets to open up this diagonal, and he can use the other diagonal as well to exchange the rooks. Right now black needs to keep as many of these pieces, the bishops, the queen, the rook, on the board, and white can try to trade it off. Now apparently queen b5 is completely fine. Again, why does king c1 not work? Oh yeah, because apparently you can go queen to c5. Again, this is why computers suck. I mean, again, it's very dank. It's like queen b5, as a human you see queen f1, but queen b5 is the right move because you can go to c5. So like when you go to b7 and king c1, you no longer have the c5 square for your queen, and so therefore white's winning. I mean, one square is a difference. Like literally this one square on the board, this magic c5 square that you can access from b5, for the computer is why it's good, and for the human it's like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you can see queen b5, but seeing queen c5 on the spot here, very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. So yeah, I mean, this is crazy. And now because you don't have queen c5, apparently you just lose. And that's why, again, when you use computers to look at the games at the end, it's like it starts to mess with your mind, because you're like, what's going on? Like, it's this magic square that you don't have access to from b7. And so as a human trying to rationalize that, it's borderline impossible. Will we start teaching computer like ideas to the younger generation? Well, you're already seeing it in games like you're seeing the computer knowledge in the games between like Esipenko and Magnus, for example, where Esipenko just gambited a juicer on g5 for the quick piece play. You saw it in this game with g4 being played by Anish. But what will happen down the road is there's going to come a point with kids who are like 7-8 years old or even younger, who are just starting, where it becomes internalized. And when you have people who are able to internalize that at a really young age, and it becomes part of their process and it just becomes natural, those are the kids who are going to dethrone the players like Magnus and Fabiano, where like these sorts of concepts become second nature in a way that they aren't to players like Magnus or Fabiano, in a way that they never can be, because players like Magnus, Fabiano, myself, Levon, all of us, we're used to the game being different. This is not natural to us. We can come up with these ideas, but it's not natural, and it takes a lot of thinking, and it's just not in our thought process originally. So that's what's going to happen. Is there going to come kids, there's going to be a time when they're kids who start becoming really good, like 5-10 years from now, where this sort of thought process of these random computer ideas is very natural in a way that it isn't in the thought process of players like Fabiano, Magnus, or myself. So yeah, that's when you're going to see players just become much better than Magnus, and when he will probably lose the world championship. Anyway, let's keep going. King c1, queen d7, queen d5 takes, rook a6. And again, the problem here for black is what happens is like white is completely untangled. You have 3 active juicers, and even though the rook is not good here, this bishop is also kind of not good either. So these two pieces they just cancel out, the rook and the bishop, and so it's just a 3v3. And white long term will be able to use this extra rook to win the game. So rook d8 takes, queen f7, king h8, queen f6. Very nice transition by Anish into an endgame where he's up a pawn. That being said, there are still some serious difficulties to win this, because there are limited pawns on the board. So when you're up material like pawns specifically, you want more pawns on the board, or as many pieces on the board in general, because the less material there is, the more drawing chances there are. So rook d6, f3. Is rook d6 the right move here? Somehow rook f8, f7, king g7 feels right. Again, I suspect this is very unpleasant, because white can create a wooden shield here. Like if you go here, I get this classic wooden shield. It's covering everything. Just a dominant bishop on d5 here. In long term, maybe rook a3, pass pawn supported by the bishop, very hard to defend against, and so it's very miserable to play. Instead, rook d6 is played, f3. Brilliant move by Anish here. Now you have to take, you cannot take the pawn because this is checkmate. Pawn prevents the king from coming up, and your king is sauced. So you have to go rook f6, fe4, bishop e6, e5, king b2. And the big problem in this endgame also is that, again, white has a passed pawn and the rook is behind the pawn, so it's going down the board really fast. So takes, king g7, c4. Again, not e6, because then black's king can get get in front of the pawn, and actually black is just completely fine because I'll go and eat this one and use my 2 pawns to at least make a draw. So instead he plays c4, keeps the pawn back. Now king rook b1, king a4 here, king e6, c6. This doesn't, let me think about this. Is there a way that you can play this better? So the problem for black here is you'd like to create a passed pawn. You'd like to do like this, for example, and get this pawn rolling so that you can distract the rook from being able to just use these 2 pawns going up the board. That being said, your pawn is very slow here. Your pawn is as far back as it possibly can be, versus white's pawns, which are 1 2 3 4 and 1 2 3 from queening. You need 1 2 3 4 5 6 moves, so your pawn is very far back. So the idea of creating counterplay with the pawn, I don't think you have time to do this idea. So if you don't have time to create the pass pawn right away, you have to basically somehow force this king in front of the pawn and then use the pawn up the board if you can. Now this may just be losing, honestly, I'm not sure, but let's keep going. c5, c6, rook c1. Important move, by the way. You can't go h6 because now I use my rook and I put it behind the other pass pawn and you just lose the game here. So instead he plays rook c1, and now I think he plays rook c2. I mean, it might just be lost here because, again, the problem with this position is that the rook holds the pawn and it also holds a square. So if you try to create a pass pawn, for example, and you go g4, I just go c7, and you're just too slow because the rook holds the square and the pawn. It's a classic right triangle box where the rook is perfectly placed on e3 here. So I don't know what to do. This might already just be lost. So rook e1. Okay, he goes in, he puts the king here, and then he goes king c8. Very nice. Gets the pawn 1 square away from queening. Here takes rook c1, and apparently this is not so clearly winning. Is this winning or not? He goes here, king b7. Wait, what's the mistake here? Let's see, is this winning? No, it's just winning. Okay, I just had to let it get more depth. It was a draw earlier. Where is the draw though? I mean, I'm struggling to find a draw here. I mean, can you go maybe king e7 instead of e6 maybe? And then king, no, but then e6. No, how is this a draw earlier? I don't see how this is a draw. Because I mean, king e6 I guess is wrong. I mean, I think it's just losing objectively. I think this is just losing. I think it's just losing. I think it's just losing objectively, because you can't stop the 2 pawns, because the rook is actually like miraculously on the perfect square here, because you can put the rook to c3 or e3 and it stays behind both the juicers running up the board. So I suspect this is just winning by force for white. So yeah, I would say Anish played this pretty well objectively. We get to this position. Very important, by the way, that in this position, after takes, you go rook c1, you put the rook behind this pawn, so now you can move the king out of the way and make a queen. Rook f4, king b7, rook f7. Now rook e1 is an all-star move by Anish, protecting the pawn. g5, king b8. Now if these pawns were even like, if black, let's just say black has, well, let me set this up. Let's say even if the pawn is on h5, if the pawn is on h5 even, this is a draw. So because the pawns, it's one tempo, it's winning for white. The one tempo of the pawn being on h7 versus h5 is why it's winning. Let's see. Let me do this even with the pawn here. Go here. Is this winning? So basically you need the pawn at h5 versus these 2 squares. That's the reason. The one tempo is why black loses this game. So if the pawn is on h5 here, it's a draw. The reason it's a draw is because what happens is when you queen the pawn, I push the pawn, and the pawns are just too fast going down the board. That's why it's just losing. Pawns are just too fast going down the board. It's insane. And if you go here, I believe what happens is on g4, no, not g4, sorry, not g4, sorry, you go wait, let me go, let me show you one second. Where was I? We were here. Yeah, no, this is the wrong end game. One second. We were, where were we? Right, so we were in this one. Yeah, so the reason this is a draw is because here you go h3, and if king c6, you go g4. If king c5, you go g3, and if king d4, you go g2, king e3, h2, and you just are in time to make a queen and win the game here. And so after h3 and g4, now I think you have to go, apparently rook h1 draws, but it's already pretty late. Basically what you have to do here is go rook g1, king takes, rook takes, here rook h5, king g3, you bring the king back, but I'm just in time with the king and the pawn, and you're gonna have to give up your rook for the pawn because it'll make a queen, and it'll be a draw. Now let's go back to the game. Now the reason this is losing with the pawn here is because of the tempo. h5, king c7, h4, king c6, and here black resigns because of h3, king here, g4, king here, g3, king here, g2, king f2, and you're just in time. You can't push because you lose the pawn. And if you go h2, I go here, and you can't push the pawn, and you lose the game. So the reason that Maxime loses, he loses by one tempo. One move is the difference between it being a draw and being a complete loss, because the white king gets back just in time here versus the other line where it doesn't. So very, very harsh, and that's why chess can be a very brutal game, because when you think about this game, the reason black lost is one move, one tempo. If he could have played one more move and gotten the pawn to h5, it's a draw. Maxime draws the game. But yeah, remember, oh my god, you guys, you're right. Oh my god, you're right. So actually okay, so now this is why computers are so terrible, is because remember move 34, you can play pawn to h5. You play pawn to h5 because the computer knows that, you know, 50 moves in the future, you need that pawn on h5. You need that one extra move. I mean, and so that then we think about that, you're like, well, it's like, what am I even playing anymore? Like what is this? Like, seriously. So that's why you had to play h5, because the engine somehow, it can see, you know, 10 million possibilities in the future, and all these end games, this pawn, you need your pawns rolling down the board. So that's why h5 is a good move, because when we look at the game, that's why you have to play h5. So of course Maxime, being a feeble human like all the rest of us, he was just looking at the position and calculating the position, whereas the computer was a true 10 head, and it saw that in all these end games you need your pawns running. So yeah, I mean, it's really dank, but that's why when you look at games with computers, you really start to go like, what am I even watching anymore? It's like, it's just very, very weird. You really start to be like, like what is this exactly? So it's just one of those things where you see that. So yeah, crazy stuff. But anyway, all right, let's get back to let's keep rolling on. So yeah, h5 is just ridiculous. All right, so let's move on. Let's go to the next game, which is played between we'll do the game. The Magnus game is a long end game, so we'll start with the Roddick game, because I think this is a pretty short crush. All right, so this game starts out c4, knight f6. We'll look at it from the black perspective. d6, d4, g6, knight c3, bishop g7, e4. So Fabiano plays the King's Indian, which he almost never plays. If somebody has a Fabiano interview, I definitely want to watch it before we move to the last game, so I'm kind of curious to see what he had to say. So here he plays e5, castles, bishop g4. Very bold by Fabiano, by the way, playing the King's Indian. He almost never plays it, but I think this is based on a pure he looked at some bunky line which he was hoping he would get. So bishop to e3, bishop takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, knight c6, bishop e3. So white argues you have a grip on the center with the two pawns, and you also have the bishop pair here. So rook to e8, queen d2, knight d7, and now here Roddick plays rook a d1, and we reach a very critical moment in the game, and frankly in chess as well. So all right, in this position Fabiano plays the incredible move bishop takes c3. Is this the clip? Let me see. Okay, that is the clip. Okay, I'll watch it afterwards. So yeah, so here Fabiano plays the move bishop takes c3. Now what I'm going to say is, as you guys probably remember, there was the this previous game we looked at between Anish and Maxime, where there's this very strange h3 g4. And now in this game Fabiano plays bishop takes c3. Now to give you an example, if I could go back in the future and tell Garry Kasparov, tell Anatoly Karpov, frankly tell Bobby Fischer, or any former world champion that bishop takes c3, I go in the room and they're analyzing, I say let's just play bishop takes c3, I would get laughed out of the room. Bishop takes c3 is literally a move that probably until now you could never even consider. Honestly, if someone told me, if some IM told me bishop takes c3, frankly I would laugh at them too. I'd be like what is this? You're just your king is completely open, you're giving me two bishops for free, you're just an idiot. So that's honestly what I would look at this as. Now modern day computers, however, are showing that concepts like bishop takes c3 are playable. No, I mean seriously, Gary would also do the same thing. Honestly, if I was just some random dude and Gary's analyzing, there's like some analysis and Gary's analyzing with someone. I show up there, I literally like give me that look like, who are you? Like, get out of here. What's wrong with you? So yeah, that's why I'm gonna watch the interview after this. This is definitely an engine move, so I think this was still preparation for Fabiano, which is why I was able to play it. Now I'm not even sure that Fabiano would play this normally if he didn't know that it was a line, but it shows how computers are changing the game of chess, because until like probably today, a move like this, you literally, it's gonna be like, what is wrong with you? It's like impossible. It just violates all the rules of chess to give up this bishop here. But we're learning from computers that more often than not, you can do pretty much anything and violate all the rules if there is an underlying principle which keeps it all together. I mean, I'm sure Gary would be like, what is this trash? Like, what is this trash? You can't play chess like this. You're playing like a little kid. That's what Gary would say if he didn't know that this was a analyzed line with the computer. Sokolov had a good tweet. Okay, let's see. There was a Sokolov tweet. 1 second, let me find it. 1 second, let me find the Sokolov tweet. Okay, let's find the Sokolov tweet. Okay, here's a tweet we have from Ivan Sokolov. If this decision is good for black, I need to learn chess again. Geller is probably turning in his grave. Exactly. So Sokolov basically says exactly the same thing. It's like, if this is a good move for black, I need to learn chess again. Because yeah, when you learn chess with all the fundamentals, this is a move that literally like no one in their right mind would ever play. It just looks so bad. It looks so bad. We should teach beginners differently then. Yeah, it goes against everything that you learn when you play chess. Like, it's like you fianchetto your bishop. You never play a move like bishop takes c3. So Sokolov's tweet basically sums up what everyone kind of feels. If this decision is good for black, I need to learn chess again. Totally agreed. So yeah, why is it a good move? Well, the computer says it's good, first of all, but it's a good move because when white takes, you go queen f6. And very weirdly here, the thing is that white doesn't have time to consolidate. So theoretically, let's just say I get a position like this. This is already very good for white, because white can do is use the two bishops. Long-term play on both the h6 diagonal or potentially a d4 diagonal. And secondly, you can play something like f3 as well, just to consolidate the structure. Black has no pawn breaks, and it's really bad. So yeah, it's really bad. But the difference is, however, in this position, black has another theme, which is he can play knight c5 to hit the pawn on e4, and you don't really have time to consolidate without losing material. You don't want to take on c5, because after I take, my knight has this gigantic bastion square on d4, and it's just beautiful here. You can never remove the knight because you've made the mistake of pushing your pawns. You can't put a pawn on either of these squares, c3 or e3, to attack the knight, sorry, on d4. So that's the first thing that I would say, is that basically you get this square, so white can't really trade the bishop. And then secondly, white doesn't have time. If white had time to go f3 like this, white is just much better because the structure is consolidated. But white doesn't have time to do that. So queen b1 is played, and now queen e6. Again, more thematic ideas, hitting both pawns on e4 and c4 at the same time. So because of the concept, or the ideas, the tactical motives with these two weak pawns, it works. So rook e1 was played here, and after queen c4, Fabiano is just up a pawn and doing really well here. xQc is playing. I'll get to that later. But basically, the reason that you can get away with it is because of these two weak pawns. They're a little bit too weak in this specific situation. Wojtaszek's reaction. Oh, do we have that? Can someone give me the timestamp for that? Let's see that reaction. Someone give me the video and the timestamp so I can see bishop takes c3. Let's see it. Someone's got to have the timestamp of it. I'll give you guys a minute to give me the link for it, and then we'll watch that as well. Let's see someone's got to have it. 65-34. Okay, 1 second. Let's see, Tata Steel. Oh, is this a chess.com or Tata Steel? Someone's got to have the reaction. 1 second. Let's see. Is this the right one? Let's watch this. No, okay. I had a feeling someone was going to troll me with that, so it's not actually funny. Does somebody have the actual link? Thank you very much. Yeah, very funny. Does someone have the actual link though? Because I want to watch it. No, that happened before, so that was funny, but right now I'm not really in the mood for that. I just want to get the actual video. I'm not gonna ban, but come on, someone's got to have the timestamp. Fine, I guess I'll just find it. Is this it?
Vulnerable.
Oh, here we go.
If
Okay.
it wins you a pawn, that.
Okay, let's watch this. Okay. Okay, this looks good. Let's watch this.
Is something that is worth.
Let's see it.
Oh, and bishop c3 right away. Did you expect
Do you see, even from the side angle, you can see his eyes. His eyes are opened wide, like, what is this?
that? Bishop c3 right away. I'm a bit surprised.
You see it. You see, it's like, what is that? It's like, are you serious? That's totally like, what is that? Are you serious? That's totally, what are you doing? Are you even serious? Yeah.
I think I really like this though, because
This is so good. This is so good.
Bishop c3 right away. Did you expect that? Bishop c3 right away. I'm a bit surprised.
I think I really like this though, because his follow-up is after queen takes c3. Okay, pawn takes c3. Let's talk about that first and then get rid of that idea. It makes your queenside pawns awful. You have double isolated pawns, and black will be able to first stop their progress and then go attack them later in the game. So I don't think we'll see pawn takes c3.
And do you see his look? He's like, what? It's like, what? Do you see that again? Like, it's like totally like what?
Double isolated pawns, and black will be able to first stop their progress and then go attack them later in the game. So
Do you see, he's looking, it's like what am I missing? What is on the board that I'm missing? It's like, what is that? That's so good. No, but the thing is that it turns out to be a good move, but as humans, the way we learn chess, you're just like, it's not a move that you can play. It's just ridiculous. And Fabiano is a great player, so you're like, what is he doing? Like, how can you even play chess like this?
don't think we'll see pawn takes c3.
One more time.
Awful. You have double isolated pawns, and black will be able to first stop their progress and then go attack them later in the game. So I don't think we'll see pawn takes c3. But after queen,
his look is very much like, am I missing something? It's like, what is he doing? Am I missing something?
One of the essential problems becomes glaringly obvious is that the pawn e4 is not well defended.
Wow, that's an interesting idea.
Yeah, he's so confused. Of course.
Wojtaszek, he's very surprised. When Fabi took the knight on c3, he made such face like, really? What are you doing? You're giving me that bishop that we were talking about, that is such a great piece. It controls everything. The diagonal is open, but suddenly...
Yeah, his look, like, he does it again. You see him again, he's like, what am I missing? Like, what is this? You see it again. I mean, it's like, yeah, you start to question what's even going on. You're like, what is this? What is this move? It's like, it's ridiculous. I feel the same way.
Really? What are you doing? You're giving me that bishop that we were talking about, that is such a great piece. It controls everything. The diagonal is open, but suddenly, boom, bishop takes c3.
Yeah, you see the way that his eyes are so furrowed. It's because he's like, it's like, what's going on? It's like, what is this?
Already equalized.
Did he do it again?
Comfortably, and is taking over.
I actually believe so, and if not least of all because Fabiano has this prepared. You don't get this position, play bishop takes c3, if you don't.
Yeah, he does it again. Yeah.
And maybe he didn't prepare this exact move sequence, but he knows the ideas, he's familiar with them, and guess what? Wojtaszek is not, just by his reaction of bishop takes c3, and you sit there, that goes against every principle in chess. You're not even winning a pawn and giving up your very important dark squared bishop. But let's just go through a line quickly to evidence.
Yeah, so anyway, yeah, that's good enough, but you can totally tell, like, I would have had the same reaction. It's like, you look and you're like, what's going on? Anish would do the same thing too. Like, there's also Anish has done that too. Let me see if I can find an Anish clip. Yeah, I'm not gonna find it right now, but basically that's what happens. Is like, it's just so weird. It's just such a strange move to do. Anyway, queen b1, my reaction would be the same. I'd be like, that's what I would do. I would probably do the same thing. I don't know if I would be shocked for as long. I'd probably do it like for like 30 seconds and I'd be like, okay, well, whatever, I'm just gonna take. But yeah, anyway, rook e1, queen c4, queen c3. So Fabiano's up a pawn here. That being said, you do have some weaknesses on the king side potentially. However, I think it's okay for It's okay for black. So h5, bishop b2, knight e5. Again, white would love to put the pawns on like g3 and f4 to open up this long diagonal for the bishop. Realistically, you can't do it. So bishop to e2, h4, queen c1, trying to play f4 here. g5 by Fabiano, bishop b5. That's actually a strange move. I don't understand what that does, because if anything, getting the rook on e7, I would feel like helps black, also because there's h3 and you remove the pawn and then you get the fork on f3. So bishop b5 feels like a thematically wrong move. I'm not even sure there are good moves here. Obviously, I'm sure by this point Wojtaszek was very rattled for sure. He goes here, rook e7, rook e3, queen g6, bishop e2. Again, wasting a tempo. He went here and now he has to go back, and black gets the bro stack here. Whereas in this position you could have done the same thing potentially, just go like here and then here without wasting a tempo on bishop b5. So very strange decision. And just keep going. Rook e8. So queen c2, knight e6, f3, knight f4, bishop f1, c6. And I mean, I think black is just clearly better here. Black is just very clearly better. So queen f2, rook e6, rook c3, d5. Again, trying to open the center. All right, you guys, I think we're gonna take a short break and I'm gonna show xQc. Since I'm being told that we should watch this game. 1 second, let's go and watch this.
Everyone say it with me. Pogu. Here, I'll spell it out. P_O_G_U_. Did you do it, chat?
Oh my gosh, he's winning again. He's winning again.
He
can play rook takes d4 and knight f3.
He takes
or c3. Rook takes and c3 is also good here.
That's better.
f3 is a good move too. Yeah, it's a very good move. Yeah, he's just winning here. Maybe knight g4 is a move. Oh, la. Don't take. Like knight. Oh, don't. Do. Focus. He's about to blunder. Rook takes d4. Bishop takes.
N0 Garoli just subscribed. Much love from Brazil 333.
Thank you, appreciate it. By the way, you guys, I would have far more channel points, except I lost my 80,000 channel points roughly when I bet on xQc and he was playing Logic and he missed a checkmate and won. So that's why I have so few channel points. So I really should have like 100, but instead I have 13. So yeah.
Is this not better though?
He's got a lot of moves. Like knight takes f6 is good with rook d4. I mean, one thing that xQc should really be thinking about is that you want to trade down because you're so far ahead here. You have two rooks, a bishop, knight. Your opponent's a rook and a bishop. So trading down is always pretty good.
Baby rage.
Like even rook d6 is a good move here, just to trade the rooks. Like just trade down and get rid of the material that your opponent has. And it's not an easy concept to understand, but it's a guaranteed way to win the game.
Beautiful.
It's scary. I'm only a bit higher rated than xQc. Yeah, he's improving fast. Now he'll move one of the rooks up and probably he'll win the game here. Okay, he goes c4. There should be no stalemate possibilities, but I don't know if I like c4.
Wait.
Rook d6 loses the bishop, but then he's just up one extra rook and his opponent only has 2 pawns on the board. That's why it's a good move, because you can trade down to something that's winning. It's a good move. Oh, he's got it. Rook a5. Game over. Rook a5. He's got it.
Checkmate. Splendid donated $3. Do you think with the implementation of Neuralink and other such technology that can analyze chess lines automatically eventually the game will die off?
I'm winning all my games. What the fuck is going on, chat? Why am I winning all my games? I'm going wacko.
Doesn't believe it. Yeah, exactly.
I'm not being high ego Andy. I was always losing, so, and I spent the whole day grinding it out, and now I'm just rolling.
Good. I mean, it's not all about what's learned, but pattern recognition plays a big role. No, I don't think 2200 is realistic, but I'm guessing he's gonna get truly hard stuck if he keeps playing like this. I'm guessing he'll get truly hard stuck where he stops improving around like 1600, 15.
Wait, what?
Maybe 14, 1500. I would guess 14, 15, 1600. And then he'd probably have to do real work to improve. But I think he can still improve another couple hundred points. Just from playing. Yeah, it's a good move.
He's gonna push.
Nope. Okay, is he gonna break the pin? Bishop d2. Yeah, see, he's like
this, and then he's gonna push.
But then you just move the knight. No, he's definitely improving. He's definitely improving for sure.
Bing, bang.
But you can just move the knight. But he's got to break. Or he can do it. He can do his own pin with bishop b5. But yeah, he can just break the pin with bishop d2 and move the knight. Bishop b5 is also a good move too.
Elfins just subscribed.
Maybe I should just kind of trade.
But he's got to break the pin because black's starting to push the pawn.
Okay, I'm gonna play instinct. I'll
play.
It's a good move.
It's a good
instinct.
Move. It's a good move.
This is good because if he
Who's
pushes
watching?
up,
Forsen? Is Forsen watching? What? Forsen's watching?
It's bad because my opponent.
No, he's not watching.
My opponent's towered. What's up with Forsen? Is he doing good? Nice, not.
It's about Minecraft. Oh, he's trying to set a record. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I'll watch in a minute. Wait, out of Nether at any minutes?
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's gonna break xQc's world record or something. Okay, yeah.
This is pretty good. Take. Oh, it's my turn to play the game.
Yeah, it's your move.
That's good, I think. That's a good play. Very good play. Good. Good. Take.
He's doing well. This is good.
Move.
Records being broken today? Yeah. I mean, that's a good move.
Aha!
Now, you should obviously castle as king. No, don't go 95. Don't go 95. Anything but 95 is probably reasonable here.
Yo, xQcl.
He's stuck! All his pieces are stuck!
Oh, wow. He got lucky. He didn't take the knight. Oh, he got so lucky. Oh, he got so lucky. He got so lucky the guy didn't take his knight.
Take.
Pook.
Why was that bad? Because black can take the knight and he loses the knight and bishop.
I like that better though.
His chat is telling him to castle. I don't think he's gonna castle though. He shouldn't castle, obviously. But see, this is the problem. He's good enough to the point where, like, if his chat tells him a move and he plays it, like, he's gonna actually end up getting messed up. That's the problem. Yeah, see, and now he gets messed up because of that. Yeah, unfortunate. I mean, he's actually still in the game, kind of. No, and now he's just down a piece. He does a bishop d6 maybe, or bishop c7.
That was really bad.
Yeah, rook e1's not a bad move. That's a pretty good move, actually.
It's okay.
Yeah, but see, that's the problem. He's good enough now where if he listens to chat, it's like sometimes they intentionally are going to throw him off.
I can still win this. I got rolled. I think I lost.
Still keep going.
2 months. Can I get a welcome to the jungle xQcl?
Maybe rook e7's a move here. Tough position to play though, very tough position.
It's not gonna work. I think I lost.
Just keep moving. It's only a piece. It's only one piece. It's only one piece. F3 is a good move, by the way. It restricts the knight from jumping in the center. Tough move to play, but he's just got to move. He's like way too unhappy. Like Rook E7 was probably better. Okay, not bad. Claim the reward? Okay.
MG
there.
may have just subscribed.
xQcl.
This guy's pretty good. This guy's good.
Bishop E7's not a bad move. He's got a couple of moves here.
That's not bad of an attack.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you could have gotten the rook trap, but yeah, it's like one of those things.
Wait.
He's only down a piece. He's only down one piece. I listened twice. What do you mean twice? It's only one time. What do you mean?
Wait. Fuck the pawns. The pawns can suck me off. I don't care about the pawns. I have a strategy in mind.
Is he gonna go for a double? He's gonna try to stack the rooks on the 7th, I think. He's gonna try to stack the rooks on the 7th, which is not bad. Not bad at all. It's not a bad idea to try and stack the rooks. I mean, he's losing here no matter what he does, but I like the idea if he tries to stack. He's also moving too slowly, unfortunately. Yeah, he's gonna go for the stack. Not bad.
About doing a day where you played a bunch of older games on an emulator since you own almost every single old game ever in real life.
____K just subscribed.
He's got to create one square of space first, and then one square of space, and then rook E7. Okay, not a bad move. Not a bad move. Unfortunately, he's losing, but I mean, other than the one mistake when chat trolled him by saying he should castle, he's played completely fine.
FAMX_Echo just subscribed.
I lost.
MT Shell just subscribed. xQcl.
Yeah, see, he's good enough where when he actually sees what chat says, if he sees a move or something, half the time they're going to say something that's actually not good, and it will affect him in a different way.
I lost. Take. It's over. We lost. That's impressive. Good job. Good player. If I was off stream, I think I could have beat him.
Maybe, yeah. If he was off stream, he went to castle, and maybe he would have been in the game, because he castled, and that was totally chat that trolled him with castle.
Wait.
Okay.
Hi chat.
This is getting very. Whoa.
Mine is CD. Grip in.
It almost works. You can take the pawn and move the bishop. This is still very much a game if he moves quickly. Just take the pawn and move the bishop back to like d4. Just take the pawn and move the bishop to d4 is what he has to do. Only way he can win. But I mean, he's still losing, but this is very tricky now. Bishop d4. Move the bishop. Move the bishop.
Oh.
Okay, just take the pawn. He's still in the game.
Guys, did I fuck it up?
I mean, he's probably always losing, but he had some chances there if he moved the bishop back.
Guys,
The broken
did I
windmill.
big blunder?
Yeah. It was always losing, but it was close. It was very close there. Very, very close. It was always losing, but really, really close. He's not wrong, though, to think there was something there. Yeah, he needed to move the bishop and then try to move the rook, but I mean, it was always going to be an uphill battle anyway. This guy is significantly better than him. But I think he would have had a shot if he didn't castle, if he didn't listen to his chat and castle kind of. He would have had a chance in that game. He also would do better. Yeah, he would do better if he hadn't if he wasn't 19 hours into his stream. No, I mean during the events, you guys, during the actual events, we have to be emote mode. But most of the time when I see his moves, he's not actually listening to chat. Yeah, just b3, and the rooks are too powerful behind the pawns. That's the problem.
Smile.
That's all I have.
Yeah.
Hi, Mr. Stinky Head. It's my 12-month pop.
Yeah, that's all I have.
Hello, champ? Question mark emoji.
He might get a stalemate maybe. Although honestly, I think these guys are too. This guy's too strong.
GG.
He needed to keep the king up because now there's just the ladder.
Dan Bland just subscribed.
Just the ladder. Rook c7, rook c2. Yeah. Tough. The good thing though is when he loses the games, like when he loses games, he still sees it.
Fuck it, I'm done. I guess I'm up in battlefront.
Okay, I think he's done. Yeah. No, I mean he had no real chance objectively in the game, but I thought I thought he played pretty well. Like even when he was worse, he played pretty well. So hard to say anything super negative. I mean he played quite well. He did. What did he do wrong? Well, he listened to chat. Chat told him to castle, and he listened to chat. He castled his king. If he doesn't castle, it's completely different. All right, let's finish up our analysis. So d5, g3, pawn takes, knight 8 takes, and I guess if king f2 here, there's rook g3 with a knight g4 mate because the rook holds the open e file. The pawn holds the rook here, and it's just winning. So yeah, he listened to chat. I mean, chat said castle, and he blundered castles. Knight takes e5. He was down a piece, and he lost the game. That's why. That's the reason he lost the game. Plain and simple. So anyway, back to the game. So king h1 here, f2, bishop h3, knight c4, takes rook e1, and here Roddick resigns because if you go bishop f1, I just take your rook. If you trade the rooks, I make a queen, and then after king h2, I go queen g1 checkmate. Yeah, not a lot to say about this game, this Fabiano game. I mean, I think it was just a great idea, and Roddick got kind of tilted, or he was very unsure of himself, and he didn't react correctly to what Fabiano did, which honestly I think most people would not react well to this because you'd be like, what is this bishop takes c3 move? So in general, I think he just got rattled, couldn't find the right reply, and Fabiano won a very nice game. So Fabiano deserved to win. And let me watch his interview very briefly because we had the interview as well as Fabiano because I want to hear what he had to say. Where is it? Is it this one? No, it's not this one. Wait, does somebody have the link of Fabiano? I had it earlier, but I lost the link. Can someone send me the Fabiano link again? Because I lost it. Is this it?
This exact.
No, it's not this though. It's not that. It's not that. It's the interview. It's the interview. It's slightly different. Do we have the? Is it this one? Here we are. Okay.
Fabiano, a big win today against Wojtaszek with the black pieces to move to +3. Ivan Sokolov tweeted about your game and about your move bishop takes c3. If this decision is good for black, I need to learn chess again. Does he?
I think that these positions are sort of a bit different than we knew in the past. Like the whole King's Indian, I think, has a lot of potential that we didn't realize. And I didn't know if bishop c3 was like correct in this position exactly, but I'd seen it in some similar positions where white can't really free himself. Like if he gets G3 bishop G2, basically black's position is completely awful. But he never gets it. Okay, I think that he misplayed it soon after. I mean, he was playing queen c1, queen b1. This can't be the way to play. He can play like queen c2, and I don't win a pawn, but I just hold him. Like I play knight c5, rook e1, a5, or rook e7, and he doesn't have a way to like get his bishops out without losing a pawn. And I guess he was trying to sack a pawn in the best way, but clearly this wasn't the best way.
What was the moment when you felt that the knights were taking over against the bishops?
Well, it was kind of funny because I felt like my position was much better already after he played like queen b1, queen c1, queen b1, queen e6. I thought I should be much better, but it was like remained very, very difficult to know how much better for a long time. And at some point I realized that like with rook e8, rook e7, knight on f4, when I got like pretty much everything, that I must be maybe close to winning, but it still wasn't easy. And I had like so many choices I couldn't really decide. And after g3 I felt like this should be winning, but I still had to, I think, calculate it pretty accurately.
How important do you feel this win was in your quest to defend your title here at Tata Steel Chess?
Oh, I mean, this one is definitely important, but it's not like we're at a situation in the tournament where, you know, there are must-win games or anything. It's still like a huge cluster of players at the top and many games to go. And I guess I'll be in the shared lead because I don't think that Ali Reza is going to win the game. I assume it'll be a draw. So I guess I'll be in shared lead. But there's also like so many players, half a point behind.
So many players, so many games still. Tomorrow you're white against St. Magnus Carlsen. Is that always a special game?
Well, it's always a tough game, a very tough game. And despite him not being in the best of shape here, okay, I think that he's really has to win the game today. I mean, he probably will win it. I mean, he's up a pawn. And it was also sort of a must-win for him in terms of still fighting for first place. But despite not being in the best shape, I mean, he's always remains a really, really tough opponent.
Thank you, Fabian, and good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, not bad. I mean, in general, I agree with what Fabiano says there for the most part. I mean, this whole idea of knight c5, like it looks very weird, but the position is definitely computers do say that it's playable, so it makes a lot of sense. In terms of why he played it. Fabiano does sound like Eric Rosen a little bit, I think. But anyway, no, pretty standard stuff. All right, so Fabiano wins a nice game. By the way, if Fabiano wins tomorrow, does he come within like one game of Magnus Carlsen for #1 in the world? Like I don't actually look super closely at the ratings, but is he within one game? If he wins tomorrow, I think he's within one game if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, so we'll see. So yeah, anyway, 2022, yeah, it's getting no, because Magnus won today, so Magnus gained some points. That's right. Yeah, Magnus won today, which was really important. If Magnus didn't win today, it would have been really, really close. But anyway, so nice win for Fabiano. I'm gonna take one short break, and then we're gonna take a look at the last game between Magnus Carlsen and Niels Grandilli. So I'll be right back. All right, you guys, so let's keep going. Okay, let's keep going. Why does Hikaru hate Eric Rosen? I don't hate Eric Rosen. Thank you, Dan Bland, for the prime. Means with the prime. Farm Echo with the prime. Ola K with the prime. Thank you to Art and1 for the prime. big hoss for the tier 1. Dragone with the prime, Gizmo Pip with the prime, Carbon Strings with the prime, thinking Empty Shell for the 4, MG Maid for the 2, Elfins for the 18, Asian Bram for the 2, Beehawks for the 3, Nogoroli with the 2, thank you to Thunderburger with the 2, Kawayon with the 3, thank you to Ever Splendid for the $3. Thank you so much, appreciate it. All right, so let's keep going. Let's keep going. So let's take a look at the last game between Magnus Carlsen and Niels Grandilius. Magnus having the white pieces. Okay, so e4 c5, knight of 3 d6, d4 takes, knight of 6, knight of 3, a6, and Magnus goes queen d3. So another Najdorf. Did we have 2 more losses for the Najdorf today? So Niels lost with the Najdorf, and Niels lost with the Najdorf, and Maxime lost. Najdorf has been doing terribly in this event, and just really brutal. So e6, a4, knight to c6. I'll talk about GME afterwards. Knight takes, pawn takes, queen g3. Pretty interesting setup by Magnus. I think the idea is to put pressure on the pawn on g7, maybe go bishop d3 and bishop g5. So bishop b7, bishop e2, bishop e7, and now bishop f4. Kind of a strange idea. I guess Magnus wants the castle, but he figures with the queen on g3 you target this diagonal from g3 to d6 or to b8, maybe rook d1. Secondarily, this is not really a Najdorf structure anymore, because at some point Black will have to play e5 or d5. So e5 is played here, bishop e3, castles, king h8. I don't really love king h8 here, but again, position is a little bit unpleasant. Like, the bishop on this diagonal is not well placed because you really want to play d5, but your pawn on e5 is under attack here, so you can't really play d5. If you go c5, it's not really what you want, because when let's just say you get some position like this, you really want to be capturing with your pawn towards the center. Like, this would be the dream. If you go here, take something like this by pushing the pawn, the dream would be to capture. So you don't really want to push c5. You want to play for d5, but you can't push d5 because this is under attack, and also your bishop kind of is misplaced then on b7 behind the pawn on c6. So it's a very tricky position. Why not bishop h6? It's an idea, but Black can play knight to e8 and hold the pawn, and you basically will have to move the bishop, because I'm going to go bishop h4 to remove your queen from the g file next move. So here, white castles, Black goes king h8, white plays a5, knight to d7, rook f to d1, f5. So Niels decides he can't play for c5 because then you give up this square. He can't play d5 because white controls it with the knight and the rook and the pawn. So he decides to try to break the other way with f5 here. So pawn takes d5. I don't know GME. I'll talk about it in a second. Knight d4, bishop to d2 is played, c5, queen to h3. And so Niels kind of gets a big center here. He wants to put pressure in the center, maybe bishop e4 at some point, maybe even just e4. Goes bishop g5, trade, rook e1, bishop to e4, bishop to d3, bishop takes, rook takes, and now knight b6. Very nice move by Magnus here. The idea being that he wants to get rid of this pawn at a5 and create an open file for his rook. Secondarily, if Black trades, this is also a very advanced pass pawn going up the board here. So I feel like something went wrong, kind of. Goes h6. I mean, I understand the idea. You want to create look for your king. I feel like you maybe, well, I guess rook f6 you run into b7 and there's like queen c8 or something. So computer says rook b8, rook a6. Oh wow, and queen d2. Okay, this is very hard to find. And rook f1 you can just take, apparently. Again, this does not feel very human. You have to worry about b7 and rook a8. Everything feels a little bit loose here, but apparently this is just fine for Black. So very tricky, hard to play a move like rook b8. So he goes h6, queen d3, rook b8, rook takes a6, rook f6. Again, trying to win back the pawn on b6 here with the 2 rooks. So white goes g3, he takes f4. Nice tactic by Magnus. So Niels wins back the pawn, but f4 is very strong, because if right now I'm forking the queen of the pawn, if you take the pawn, I have rook e8. It's a potential ice skater, no lift for a king. And when you move, when you move, and also pawn g3 supports it. So g3 is dual purpose here. It creates a lift for the king, but it also threatens f4. So very nice move by Magnus. Now apparently c4 here is a draw. Don't ask me why, because takes, you can just take, check king h7, check king g6, and there's nothing special for white. Okay, crazy. Secondarily, after rook takes, you can go queen f6. If I trade and take, you go here, and on b4 takes, the king is in the box to the b8 square. It's 1 2 3 4, and it's 1 2 3 4, so the king can actually catch this pawn as it goes up the board to b8. So a very insane stuff here. Computers of course are way too strong, unlike us humans. You see rook e8 and you panic, but apparently c4 is a draw. So queen d8, rook e5, rook b2, rook takes c5, and now it's a very unpleasant position. White is up a pawn, but more importantly there are a lot of threats because your king on h8 is not secure here, and your d4 pawn is weak, so it's a very tough position to play technically. Goes queen a8, king f2, rook b8, queen f3, queen a7, queen d5, queen a1. Now apparently d3 here is a logical move, and after takes you can play queen to b6. Wow. And this is actually a draw, and the reason this is a draw is because when white moves the king, you go rook here, your rook holds the queen, and even if white goes like here, you can just take. If takes, you take the rook, and then when white tries to check, you actually can go back, so your queen holds the rook here. So yeah, I mean d3 is drawing, but hard to play for a human. So Niels goes queen a1, queen e5, queen b2, rook c6. Again, white's trying to line up threats. The queen is centralized, very powerful here on e5. You're threatening rook h6, you're threatening rook c7, and technically speaking this looks really hard for black to hold. So he goes king h7, rook c7, rook g8, king g2. Very nice move by Magnus. Even if the computer says f5 wins, very thematic. Just play it very slow, improve the king, get it to the safe square, and then figure out whether it's f5 f6, whether it's rook d7, and so forth. So queen b4 check, rook d7 check, and this I think is around where I left the game after rook c8.
9 months, yay,
Pawn to f5 here. I don't know if this is the best move, but it looks fine. So queen d1, rook e8, and then we get this endgame with check, and then f6, queen e2, king h3 check. Now after f6 here, you kind of have to check, because if you take the pawn, white can go check, check, and then whichever square you go to, I take this one with check, and now I simply have 2 extra pawns and win the game. So after f6 he goes check, king h3 check, king h4 takes, check, king f8. Again, the queen now protects the pawn. At the same time, very technically hard to play for black, because white has a passed h pawn, and you really have no breaks. Your pawn, you can't push this pawn, so it's stuck. You can't push this one. So as long as white can shield with the king, shield the king with the pawns and get some cover here on h6 or h7, technically I think it might already be winning for white. So he goes g4, queen e5, not queen e1 by the way, because after king h6, queen e5, it looks like black's winning the pawn, equalizing material, but after queen f5, queen h2, king g6, the queen holds the pawn on c2, and you're going to lose the pawn on f6 next move. So he goes queen e5, h3, and again the king looks kind of dangerous here, but it's supported because the pawn's protected, and black really only has 1 check, but then the king can go up to h6 and it should be winning. So he goes king e7, queen f5, queen e3, king h5. Again, same theme as before. White basically gives up the juicer on h3, but the king becomes very active, and an active king in an endgame is really important here. So now he goes king d6, king f6, queen e3, not queen h8, because then king f7, and there are no checks. The queen holds the square, there are no checks around the king, and now I just have a free path with the pawn to the end of the board. g5, g6, g7, g8, and there's even queen f6 or queen e6 if need be. So he goes queen e3, g5, queen e7, king g6, queen e8, king g7, queen e7, king g8, and he resigns because now there's really no way to prevent white from just pushing the pawn and moving the king and making a second queen here. So Niels resigns. I mean, not much to be said about this game. I think the opening kind of, it wasn't a Niels kind of opening, it felt like. I mean, maybe somewhere around here he probably had something better, it felt like. I mean, I know he had the draw with rook b8 later on, but I think somewhere in this middle game maybe there was a better way to get counterplay. But overall, just a very tough game for Niels, and I felt like in general Magnus got back, he got off the schneid, he got the win here, but I don't, it didn't even feel like it was so clean from Magnus' standpoint either, even though he won it. But yeah, I think probably time played a big role. Niels got too low. Really the only thing that he missed, I think objectively really missed, was this rook b8 queen d2 idea. Again though, I think that's asking a lot. No time on the clock, very difficult position, and what to do. So yeah, so Magnus wins the game. He gets back in the running. Let me pull up the standings now. So here are the standings currently as we head into the home stretch. Let's view the cross table. Here are the standings. Let me move my cam just for a second. Okay. So 1 second. There we go. Okay. So here are the standings right now. You have Anish Giri tied for the lead with 6 points. He won a very nice game today against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. Second place also tied Fabiano Caruana with 6 points. Third place you have Ali Reza Firouzja also on 6 points. And then you have Andrei Esipenko on 5.5. As I've said before, he is a player who definitely is 2 games against 11 and 12 Tari and Giaro, where he definitely wants to get on the scoreboard. He also has to play Jordan Van Forest. So he's got 3 games against Jordan, Arian Tari, and Anton Giaro, 3 players who are below 2,700. Definitely he has good chances to put up some dubs there. So he is currently on 5.5. Also tied with him, Jordan Van Forest with 5.5 points. Very good result from Jordan. No losses actually, which is important. Jordan always has been a player who plays very aggressively, but to have 2 wins and a bunch of draws and no losses, it shows his development as a player. 6th place Magnus Carlsen on 5 points. Again, even though he has 5 points, 1 point out of the lead. Tomorrow he plays Fabiano in the big matchup. If he wins that, he could still win the tournament. If he doesn't win, he's also black, so I think it's going to be very tough. Then he probably can't win the event. 7th place Pantala Hari Krishna, 4.5 points. 8th place Niels Grandilius, also on 4.5. In 9th is Jan Christoph Duda on 3.5. 10th Radek on 3.5. Tari on 3.5 as well. Anton Giaro also 3.5, and then at the bottom on 3 points you have Maxime Vachier-Lagrave and Alexander Donchenko. Now what I'm going to say about Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, because he definitely stands out. Duda has disappointed me, but Maxime certainly playing in the candidates tournament with a shot at winning the candidates and playing Magnus in a match. I think what's important is that he has to psychologically not let this go to his head. So I think really what we're going to see with Maxime is he going to actually play the Najdorf in the candidates? Is he going to change to something else? What's going on exactly? But it's really important that this does not affect Magnus psychologically, because I think Maxime, because this definitely could affect him, and if it does, the candidates could definitely go sideways for him in a hurry. And the other thing I would say is Maxime, based on this terrible result with 3 losses and a bunch of draws, he also has fallen out of the top 10 of the world technically. So he definitely needs to do well in the candidates. He really needs to put up a good result in that event. But I think it's very dangerous when you try to play an event and you try to just stay fresh, but you have a really bad result. Psychologically, I think it can mess you up a little bit. So we'll see what happens, but it's gonna be fun at any rate, and we just go from there. So yeah, so that's my recap. Tomorrow I think is round 10. I probably will cover a little bit because Fabiano and Magnus are playing, but it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. Now I think I'm probably gonna stop in a second, but just before we get going, the only thing that I'm gonna say, because everyone's been talking about stocks nonstop, everyone can't stop talking about,